Welcome, everybody. This is Season 2, Episode 27 of the Weekly Ward. I'm Dan Ward. We got a special guest in here, Mr. John Abdelkareem.
Hi, everybody.
And we're going to be going over, just like we normally do, a bunch of different topics, as you can see scrolled on my right side. We got the weekend recap, which we're going to get into both Grand Prix that happened this weekend, as well as the SCG teams. We're going to get you ready for the Pro Tour, which is happening, like we said, tomorrow. And then we got a cool topic, winners and losers. We're going to kind of go over some cards from our that we feel have been winners or losers, or after the Pro Tour will be winners or losers, and kind of incorporate the team series in that as well. But before we get started, I just did want to thank Kevin Jones and just let everybody know that he will no longer be doing the show. We wish him the best, and it was great to have him on here. So with that, I'd like to introduce John and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and why you're kind of sitting here with me.
So I work at Kerwin's. I work downstairs in our online inventory. I am a, I guess, casual competitive player is what you would call it. I dabble a lot in Modern. I've been playing some sort of Zoo deck for the better part of almost 3 years now. So just getting back into Standard now, but that's about it.
So you've been playing Magic for how long?
So I played casually as a child back in like Mirrodin Block. I picked back up again right around the time Cons was coming out.
Yeah.
So it's been, 3-4 years now, maybe?
But you're someone, like you said, that maybe doesn't travel to every Grand Prix, but definitely is in the know. You definitely are like looking at deck lists, working on things. I know here at the store, a lot of us talk Magic all the time.
Yep.
And just to give everybody in the audience, this is someone, like yourself that knows a lot about Magic and has a lot to give.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my passions. I enjoy it. I worked at TCG Player for about a year last year, and now I'm here at Kerwin's, closer to home. So there's definitely a lot to give. I'm definitely in tune with the game, so it's just great.
All right, awesome. Well, before we get going, I want to thank Kerwin's Game Store, which is our sponsor, for allowing us to do the show every week. Definitely, if you have time, check out our website as I scroll through here, www.kerwinsgamestore.com. We are the best place in sleeves. That never gets old, even without Kevin, it doesn't get old. That's and basically, if you need anything for gaming, we got it. We got everything from sleeves, obviously, to packs of the latest sets, everything from role-playing games, board games, video games, you name it, we got it. As well as content. We've been stepping our game up recently. We've been doing the Deck of the Weeks. We've been doing the Weekly Wards every week, which if you miss a week, we put them up there the day after. They're also on YouTube. And we have one of our latest new shows, Read, Watch, Play. So if you're into comic books, you're into the Marvel, comic kind of movie thing, and HeroClix, definitely give that a chance because it's pretty cool. And last but not least, we also have some really cool article writers. So getting ready for the Pro Tour or a new set coming out, or if there's some latest, just some things on people's minds regarding Legacy, Standard, Modern. Sometimes we even throw a Commander on there. We update this weekly, so definitely check it out. All right. First thing, weekend recap. Boom.
Mr. William Huey himself.
As your head is covering Mr. Huey Jensen.
Oh,
there
no.
you go. There you go.
There
Show
he
some
is.
respect.
The man.
Huey goes back-to-back in Kyoto. So there was 2 Grand Prix that happened this weekend. Both of them were limited to get ready for the Pro Tour. And this one was in Kyoto. We're going to scroll down here and have the top 8. You want to give the rundown for everyone?
Yep. So in first place, we have William Huey Jensen. In second, Atsuki Kihara. In third, Martin Muller. And fourth, Mr. Finkel himself. And then in fifth, we have Ki Wentao. In sixth, we have Pascal Maynard. In seventh, we have Zhao Yu Royang. And in eighth, Kazuki Yada.
You did a way better job than I would have done pronouncing these names.
I tried. I'm sorry if I butchered anything.
So right here, we have like a pretty stacked top 8. Like arguably 2 of the top 10 players ever.
Yep.
With William Jensen and John Finkel. Huey, this is his second win in a row, Limited Grand Prix. He also won the team event with Peach Garden Oath in Cleveland. To note, Martin Mueller also locked platinum with this. The kid's 19 years old and just killing it.
He's phenomenal.
I feel like I can't say kid because he just has like such a record that puts him into like leveling up with people that have been playing the game for a lot longer than he has. But he's still a kid.
I just like watching him play. Like he's just so exciting to watch. And
I thought you were gonna say you just like watching him curse online, but
that was the greatest thing ever. I watched that live.
Hopefully this Pro Tour, if they do have an interview for him, somebody will meme him in the back with a sensor. Or maybe he'll have sensor in his deck as a one-of. That'd be kind of cool.
I just really hope it's him and Brian David Marshall again. Because that would,
that would be lit. So this is the first Grand Prix that we'll go over. Pretty much with the limited format going into this weekend, I'll have a lot to talk about for Toronto. The format slowed down a little bit. We've seen a lot of hype went into this weekend for this blue-red aggressive style deck, and I think it is definitely a deck that, if it's open at your table, you want to try to be in that. That's like the one deck you really want to keep your eye on. But looking at and scrolling over the deck list, which I did, there was a lot of green-black, green-white, just more green decks than I initially thought would be winning and just moving to the directions that 2-1 or 3-0 the draft pods. The one green deck that going into this weekend, like limited wise, I felt was a good choice. Appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it for the follow. Was the ramp deck. So we've seen a couple 3 or 4 color decks. We have a lot of fixing now between Beneath the Sands, Gift of Paradise, Sheffet Monitor, Evolving Wilds, and the 2/4 creature. Excuse me, I'm terrible with it. I'll pull it up real quick. Because I think it's Corey Baumeister said it was one of the best in his article. Commons in the set, if not the best common in this set, and I will get to it here because I think it's definitely worth bringing up. This guy right here, Oasis Ritualist. So for those of you that don't know what that card is, as I click on it, it is a 2/4 creature for 3 and a green that taps for any color, and then you can exert it to get 2 of any color. Why this is so important is because not only does it ramp, but it also fixes it the same way. And being able to do that when you need just the 1 mana, but then getting the 2 mana, like the next turn, is like huge. And I think I got to see how powerful this was. I played it in draft this weekend, and I also had it in my sealed pool. So this card just is so powerful, and that was like kind of where I thought a lot of the green decks would be going, is just like the ramp. But looking at some of these lists, we just saw like just straight 2 color, like green black, maybe splashing like 1 off color rare because you have this card in your deck and you have maybe like 1 other thing. It just like allows you to play other cards in your deck that you normally would not be allowed because of mana base constraints. So it was really cool to see that. And, as I was talking about it here, we have Huey Jensen, who ended up winning Kyoto with a green-black deck, and he had 2 of the Oasis Ritualists in his deck. And as I scroll through, we saw, like, here you go, right? Here's a red card in a green-black deck. And, yeah, this card cycles, so, like, it's never dead in your hand, but there's just going to be random games where you go, turn 4 Oasis Ritual, and now guess what? Double red, you can play this next card. Yep. Thanks a lot for the follow. Damien, free the daddy. Oh, so, so this is pretty powerful. This card is gas. Dude, we're just getting gassed out here, the gas tank. Adam Gamers, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. So moving into Toronto, let's give them the shout-outs that they deserve. Here we go. Boom, hit them with it.
All right. First place, Robert Anderson. Second, Alan Sun. Third, Matthew Nikolai. And fourth, Benjamin Whites. And fifth, Andrew Canillo. In sixth place, Doug Potter. And seventh, Taimir Rashid. And in eighth, Yu Chen N.
Yeah.
I think Yu Cheng N. I apologize.
Sorry if you brutalized that one, but congratulations on all these guys. Top 8. Alan Sun, he's a known player from the East Coast. Good to see him back. Good to see him back in there. Benjamin Whites, a.k.a. the Professor. I'm the only one that calls him that, but he's a professor. He looks like one. He does, right? That's why I kind of gave him the nickname. He was, like, undefeated through, like, almost the entire tournament. I think he might have drew the last round. a great limited player. I'm just really happy to see him continually doing well. Andrew Cuneo, also great player. Not surprised at all to see him there. 8-1 after day one. Ben was 9-0. Two of the strongest players in the tournament. And we can take a look at Robert's deck, and this is where I was talking about again. As this weekend, the blue-red deck was like, hey, this was the deck to force it if you could. Kind of like the last Pro Tour red-white aggressive decks with the Cartouche and the white Trial was like the force. I felt like the blue-red Riddle form on summon decks were kind of a little bit maybe overdrafted or overhyped. The deck's powerful, but here we go again with this green-white deck. I'll give a little run through here. We have Crested Sunmare, just putting some horses in play is great.
That card is awesome.
Oketris Avenger, one of the best 2-drops in white, so just really powerful, and you can see Robert had 3 of them, so that's really huge. And I liked the spells here that were in the deck. We have some combat tricks. We have Ambuscade, one of the best removals to come out of Hour, and just a good mix of creatures. We don't see that much chaff. Obviously, Pride Sovereign's a pretty powerful card. And just like a good curve, which is, I think, important to have in draft. Talked about this format slowing down a little bit, but still, if your deck can really curve out and have a lot of good 2-drops, you can put your opponents behind the 8 ball, so to speak, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think the more that this type of limited format goes forward, too, there's still room for development a little bit more.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens this weekend, but...
Yeah, that's a good point, Brioche. I see this in there. Sorry, didn't day 2. That stinks. 19 points of burn in his deck. That's a lot of burn.
That's rough.
So congratulations not only to these 8 players, but to everyone that did last week of the season, which, the Pro Tour is the last event of the season, but for everyone that's not participating, congratulations if you made bronze. Sorry if you didn't. If you made silver, if you made that last level that you really wanted to. The good news is it's all over now, and you can restart, and we've got a brand new system. Lastly, for Toronto, the tournament went okay with me. I went X2-1 day 1. My deck was really sick, and I'll pull up a picture from Twitter. Thanks, Corbin, for highlighting my deck. I did have Sandworm Convergence, and you can see my other hand has Hour Promise. It's a little bit of a combo to go Hour of Promise into Sandworm Convergence. I did that once. That was sweet. Other than that, my deck was just really incredible. Lost to some cool people. Just Insult to Injury is a really good card.
Yep.
And when you have Sandworm Convergence in play, you just keep putting worms out. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the movie Tremors is just happening around you, and Kevin Bacon's trying to fight it, but you can't. The worms just keep coming, and then your opponent casts Open into Wander, and just kills you. So for those of you that don't know what that card is, it's 2 blue X. X creatures become unblockable until end of turn, as well as you get to draw a card for each of those creatures that deal damage to you. So when you're just like, all right, I stabilized, and they have 6 creatures in play, and you're like, okay, I pretty much can't lose. And then they're just like, oh, by the way, all my guys, you can't block. You're dead. It's kind of tough, so. And I did play one insane game this weekend where I copied a Locust God with Vizier of Many Faces.
That is sweet.
And let me tell you, it was awesome. We ended up on a draw, unfortunately, but it is what it is. As far as the draft goes, I drafted a blue-green deck that I went 1-2 with, and I drafted a white-black deck that I went 1-1 drop, since my car was like, all right, we're going. And I was like, all right, we're going. I was already dead for any kind of prize. I would have played the last round, but we took off. So the blue-green deck, I think it's okay. Not necessarily something you want to be in. I kind of, in the beginning, was hoping to get to the 3-color, but none of the cards, like the bombs that I wanted to splash for, had good fixing, kind of came around. The white-black deck, I think, is actually very good. You just have to not be afraid to commit to it early. Like if you see one of the Unwavering Zombies, I think that's one of the most powerful cards, obviously, for that archetype. And I think a lot of people are scared to kind of go into that pack 1. But pack 3, you can really have a good payoff. So, that guy, Joshua, man. All right. Well, yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for Toronto and Kyoto. So we're going to see what happens this weekend at the Pro Tour, see if some of the things that I just mentioned hold true. For those of you that are interested, Marshall Sutcliffe on the Mothership put up an article about draft and about where his limited thoughts are. I thought was like a really good read, so definitely check that out. So, Shadow Strider, appreciate the follow. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. All right, so for weekend recap, we got one more thing that's going to get right into the Pro Tour preview. Wanted to go over the team event, and it's kind of tough to take the time to be able to hit everything. Wasn't able to with playing Toronto watch. Did you get to watch any of the team event?
I watched everything.
Okay.
I thought it was good. This is the type of event that makes me want to keep playing and keep, strive to go to. Good weekend with friends, it seems like, so.
Team events are awesome. What was the one thing that stood out to you?
Seeing Legacy.
Okay.
That always stands out. No, it was great just seeing players. There was a lot of, I guess, cross between different teams.
Okay.
Because a lot of players were going to the Pro Tour, and, there's a couple players who didn't have partners who teamed up with, players they normally wouldn't outside of their original.
Yeah.
So I think that was cool, just seeing tons of different players
Hey,
get
thanks a lot
together.
for the follow.
I think, the team of Jody Keith, Tom Ross, and Todd Stevens, they just crushed it. They just killed it. It was great. It was great watching them.
I gotta say, I love those guys. I met Jody Keith about 2 weeks ago, and I've watched him play Lands, and I was very impressed. He also played White Blue Control at a Classic. Thanks a lot for the follow. Appreciate it. And I just love him. Just watching him, just doing his thing. It's great. And the other two are great too. Tom Ross obviously doesn't need any introduction. Todd Stevens has made his name like a mainstay now in Modern.
Yep.
Not saying that he's not good in other formats, but I mean that's his bread and butter, and he's been killing it. So yeah, definitely going into the weekend, they were one of the teams to beat, and in fact, they were the best team of the weekend
by far.
So, getting into that, let's go over a couple of decks here. Why don't we give the rundown? This is only the standard we're going to get into because of the PT. We want to make sure that we use as much time as we can on that.
All right, so in first, Mr. Tom the Boss Ross himself, Mono Red. Jim Davis in second with Mono Red. Lucas Parson with Teamer Energy in third. Andrew Hollingsworth with Green Red Ramp in fourth. Kevin Jones, Esper Aggro in fifth. Tyler Wilkerson, Mono Red Aggro in sixth. Marduk Vehicles, Zachary Plott in seventh. And Zan Syed with 4-color Emerge in eighth.
Okay.
That's a lot of Mono Red.
Andrea need to bring his clones, and Omar. Yeah, I just was gonna say, did you say Mono Red 4 times? I just heard Mono Red, Mono Red, Mono Red.
All the Mono Red.
It's back? Is it back? Is it too soon to say it's back?
I think it's back.
It's back.
I think it's been a while. I think Mono Red is
Backstreet's back.
Yeah, it's just like that deck where it's like, hey, here it is, deal with it.
Yeah, it's interesting to I'm not surprised to see this many people playing it. My friend Omar, he top 8'd the PTQ online with it. He's been playing it for a while. He's a Mono Red player. I've seen it. It dominated the PTQ this weekend. TN win. Congratulations to that's I guess the last little bit for Toronto. He ended up winning the PTQ, beating a Mono Red mirror. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate the follow. And so, yeah, Mono Red has been taken over online. I think the online metagame is still yet to adjust 100% to it, and we'll kind of get into that in a little bit here. But I feel like, yeah, the deck is back, and it's scary. I mean, we go from... this is the weird thing about, Magic, right? We go from, all right, well, look at all these cool cards. The format's kind of, gotten to this brewer's paradise where there's decks that you can play that are tier 1, obviously. But you can just, kind of come up with anything as long as... you stay you color within the lines, right?
Yep.
But you can use whatever crayon you want. Right now, Mono Red's saying, no. You're going to have to check that at the door. Check those crayons at the door. We'll give you some colored pencils, and that's going to be that.
I was all about it. I think, just seeing, Raging Goblin with an upside, Mr. Bomat Courier, just, beating face. It's just fun to watch. It's just, that aggressive in-your-face style that, a lot of players love. It's just cool to see something, nice aggro. Good aggro deck back in Standard.
Yeah, let's check it out. Look at Tom Ross's list here. So We've got use a card you just named. We've got 4 Bomat Couriers. We got 4 Scrap Heaps, 4 On-Crop Crasher, 4 Earthshaker Kenra, 4 Falconrath Gorger, 2 Soulscar Mage, 1 Hazoret the Fervor, 1 Kari Zev Skyship Raider, 2 Chandras, 23 lands, some removal spells, and 3 Magma Sprays and 4 Braids, and then 4 Built to Smash.
That card was great.
Nothing like attacking with a Bomat Courier and your opponent just going, I'll block, and then you go, Built to Smash. Not only do you lose your creature, but you're going to take some chip damage. It's kind of brutal. I love it. I love it. This is like down and dirty. We're here to kill you. We got a couple things at the top end of the curve. As far as the removal goes with a Braid and Magma Spray, I think that's perfect. You want like early interaction, cheap interaction. You're only playing 23 lands, and some of those are just like kind of half a land, half a spell.
Yeah, I think it's great. I also like this version better because previously players were playing a more of a mid-range type version, a mono red version like Thought-Knot Seer and whatnot. I think Tom Ross did, just way more lower to the ground, just kind of punching for damage as much as possible.
Yeah.
I think all these cards are great.
We haven't talked about Godpharaoh's Gift. We may get to that one. Hopefully we'll have some time. But yeah, getting back to this deck, I do agree. I love the Hazarets, the Chandras. Kari Zev Skyship Raider is a card when Aether Revolt came out that I highlighted as a card that I thought would be very good for red decks. However, there just wasn't enough then to have this be a card. With it being legendary, I think people are still afraid to put a lot of copies in. But with playing one, you have 0 diminishing returns because you only have one. Yep. And if you draw it on turn 2, it's still one of those cards that's if you don't kill it, it's going to really hurt you over the next couple turns.
Just the fact that it makes, what's the token? Ragavan?
The monkey.
Yeah, just that alone.
Hey, we're the monkeys.
Here's a nice little, 2-for-1.
Yeah, the creature has menace too, so you get into some situations where that's going to actually matter. And just a powerful card. First Strike and Menace, especially when you have 4 Built to Smashes in your deck. Imagine a world where they actually line up 2 blockers and you're just Built to Smash, First Strike, and just literally just blow them out of a game. And that's just a normal play pattern for this deck. That's something people have to really consider. So I'm inclined to agree with you and say that this deck is back. And it's back, and I expect big things from this deck moving forward. So looking at the sideboard, I think Tom was still trying some stuff out, and as a lot of people are, just unsure of what else everyone's bringing to the table. So you see some cards in here like Chandra's Defeat, Aethersworn Harvester, Kari Zevs. A lot of these cards in there that are just generic cards that they're going to be good in situations, but not necessarily matchup dependent yet because we don't know where everything's going to settle. You see 3 Blazing Volleys. I think that's just mainly for the mirror. I think that's a really hard hitting card. It's also kind of cool versus if the counters, not the counters, the tokens deck shows up, because a lot of those are 1 toughness. So be interesting to see. The other deck I wanted to highlight from this tournament was a deck that kind of got a little buzz last week. Got a little buzz, when the set got spoiled. Hour of Promise kind of got really hyped up. That's kind of settled down a little bit, and I kind of wanted to go over was Green-Red Ramp. So if you want to go over and give everybody the beautiful bean footage here.
Yep. So actually at one point I think Andrew Hollingsworth was on. He was in a future match in the top 8, and he played this deck. The deck seems sweet. It seemed a tidbit slow. He was playing against a mono red deck.
Okay.
So I think the deck is great. I think it has yet to break out. I think just having things like Hour of Promise, Hour of Devastation wipe the board. Eventually if you get there, you just get to Ulamog.
There's nothing like turn 3 Beneath the Sands into turn 4 Hour of Devastation, especially in this list because you have the deserts. And so if you happen to have deserts in play, you have that. But if you're just hey, I'm not dead. I'm going to turn 4 go get 2 shrines, and turn 5 Ulamog. It's pretty devastating. And it brings back to people's flashbacks of the Marvel, but it's just a turn later. So, and
I think in general the deck has a lot to work with. We see 3 Kozilek's return in the main, 1 on the side. I think it's fine. wipe the board when you can, 4 braids, so there is removal, which is
Yep.
nice. Ballista, kill some things, block and shoot some Bomad couriers down.
I do agree with that. I think looking at this list, the one thing I will say is that a braid is great. Kozilek's Return is traditionally good versus a lot of these go wide and strategies of killing multiple creatures. But both Kozilek's Return and Hour of Devastation, they're not very good versus this red deck. For one, they're slow. And for two, I can pull it back up, but almost every creature in the red deck has haste. And so, cool, you take your turn off to like Hour of Devastate or Kozilek's Return. They just like untap and play like 1 or 2 more creatures with haste, and they're coming right back at you again. And so, thus, it makes it unable for you to operate your deck the way you normally want to, and then your ramp strategy isn't as efficient. So, I would like to see this deck maybe have to move toward Magma Sprays in the main deck. Thanks a lot for the follow. Appreciate it. So I don't know, this deck right now, looking at it, obviously picks on the mid-range. Ramp decks always pick on mid-range decks, like Temur Energy, even Mardu Vehicles probably, that because of our Devastation, you can just take out the Gideons, which is important.
Yep.
But like if Mono Red is going to just be like the deck, then you need, I think, to cut some of these spells, like maybe the Oath of Nissa's, because you are running 25 lands, maybe cut a Chandra or 2, and you need to just lower the curve, because I think where he's at now, he's going to have a hard time beating some of these decks.
I agree. I think just like the Oath of Nissa can definitely get chopped, I feel like. I mean, this is like, maybe for my better comparison, it's like a standard Tron deck.
Yeah.
Just lands and spells. It lands in big things.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, I can definitely agree with that. And I think if the mid-range does show up the Pro Tour, this could be a huge player. Unfortunately, and we'll kind of move right into our Pro Tour preview, where we'll go over, I'm going to go over the decks that currently exist in the meta. We'll bring this one up, and we'll kind of talk about like opinions on what we expect to see, and kind of go over just some decks, and let's start off with the poll. We got a poll for you today. We got to get the poll up here. Bear with us, but the poll, so get ready to answer it, is it's going to be, is there going to be an established deck that wins the Pro Tour, true or false? So that poll is going to be up in a sec. But meanwhile, I'm going to revert here to going to the Goldfish, and we're going to talk about the metagame. So right now, we got it up there. We got it. There it is. So will an established deck win the Pro Tour? True? Or are we going to see some kind of just... Established would mean it is an archetype that currently exists and people know about. So if, let's say, for instance, looking at this right here, we don't see God Pharaoh's Gift deck on here. I don't believe. Yeah, it's not on the first page of the standard metagame, which I'm really surprised, to be honest. Thanks a lot for the follow. Appreciate it. I'm really surprised to not see that on here, but if that deck wins the Pro Tour, that was an established deck. So I'm talking about some kind of like out of there deck, like, trying to like Nest of Scarabs or Mill, like one of those decks, like if something like that comes up. So here we go. This is I want to say a little outdated. I don't think it's as up to date as I'd like it to be, but we have the first top. Let's take the first 8 here. So we got Blue-Red Control, we've got Mardu Vehicles, Monument, Temur Energy, we just got done talking about it, Mono-Red Aggro, Green-Black Energy, Green-Red Pummeler, Mono-Black Zombies, and the last one I want to throw in there is Green-Red Ramp. So, out of these decks, what do you think about these decks? Like, do you have anything that you kind of like makes you want to play one or the other?
I think for me, before building the Emerge deck I have now,
Okay.
I actually played Temur Energy. I was on that deck for a little bit.
Okay.
Right after the last Pro Tour, when I saw a couple deck lists, I was like, all right, this deck seems sweet. I think the deck has kind of disappeared a little bit, but I think there's so many different cards and so many different things that fit well into it that some type of Temur Energy deck could make a comeback.
Okay.
I mean, I think a Braid kind of slows down the Blue-Red Control decks. Gear Hulk doesn't look as scary now, which is nice.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
I mean, my vote is definitely Teamer Energy. I think that the deck is gonna, make some sort of comeback. Maybe not as much. I don't know. Maybe a little more control based.
Okay. So for me, like looking at all these decks, I think you can make honestly an argument for almost all of them, and that's kind of a cop out thing to say, but I really do. And I think the standard is currently at a place where, barring somebody breaking it, which we will see, and God Pharaoh's Gift kind of did do that at the PTQ. People were unaware of that, but now that they know how to play it, I think that deck loses a little bit of its edge. But I think this is going to be the first Pro Tour in a while that mono red aggro is a legit deck. And so whenever you have a format where there's a very good aggressive deck, that's going to be one of the decks that people defer to because it's usually, I'd say, a little bit easier to play. It's straightforward. You're not messing around, and it's going to go forward every time, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see where everyone kind of settles on because you're going to have not quite a rock, paper, scissors because there's legitimately 8 to 10 decks in Standard right now that you could make an argument for. And one of the most common mistakes I think people have done in the past is forgotten about decks that haven't really gone anywhere. And as you can see, Mardu Vehicles is 10% of the online metagame right now. And it's a deck that through friends, those social media, people have just forgotten about this deck. And I think that's kind of absurd. I think not much has changed. Gideon's still great. Heart is still great. Yes, a Braid is a card, but it's a removal spell, and they could get rid of it before. Yep. An Hour of Devastation is very powerful versus deck, but there's not a lot of decks playing that card.
I agree. I think the deck is still there. It's still aggressive enough. Still, it does its thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I'm curving out turn 1 Inspector into Heart, into something on turn 3, removal, whatever have you, and then play Gideon. There's not a lot of decks that can deal with that.
Yeah, it's really tough, and it's like, I wouldn't be surprised to just see Paul Riesel just suit up Mardu Vehicles and just run people over. Just like, GP New York, and he's just like, yeah, don't ban Gideon because I just want to play it every Pro Tour until it's like gone. So as we see like Blue-Red Control, Monument, we've seen the uptick in black-green, a little bit of mid-range showing up on the right side here in recent events. I've played against a couple of people playing that deck. Not so much zombies and the green-red ramp deck. I haven't seen it as much online, but the last deck, I guess, that's on this list, because Monument needs no introduction. It's dominated here for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We've seen Jonathan Rossum get second place in back-to-back events now. The Classic this weekend and also the Open in Cincinnati the previous weekend. So that deck's obviously good. It had its breakout tournament at the Invitational. We saw how powerful it was there. So it's a deck you have to be prepared for. Might have lost some steam with a Braid. I think that definitely hurts the deck a little bit. But the deck that I really think that people need to watch out for this Pro Tour is Green-Red Pummeler or Temur Pummeler.
I can see that.
I think like a lot of people are going to be prepared to deal with mono red aggro as the aggressive deck and maybe green black energy. Thanks a lot for the follow, appreciate it. But I feel like this deck attacks at a lot of different angles, and I'm going to click on it and bring it up here. So we've got pretty standard for this list here, Longtusk Cub, Servant, Brawler, and then we go up to Pummeler, Bristling Hydra, Ronus. And then mostly the common, spells here. We have Blossoming Defense, we've got a couple Flings, Larger Than Lives. But I think this is one of those decks that even though you know what they're doing, and I mean, okay, you have a removal heavy deck. They're going to take some of the tricks out. They're going to bring in more creatures. It's a deck that if your spells don't line up correctly, you can just get run over. And if you sideboard incorrectly, you're just going to die as well. Yeah. And it has any deck that has Fling in it, you kind of have to pull for, I think, a little bit.
I think it's sweet. I had this deck at one point. I actually lost to this deck at F&M last week.
Oh, yeah?
Got crushed.
Did you get flinged?
No.
Oh.
I just got Bristling Hydra to death.
Yeah?
Just couldn't deal with it. Every time I have removal or something, it's like, all right, hexproof,
Yeah, the card is definitely the truth, and depending on how much blue-red control shows up, because I could believe that this would be a little bit of a tough matchup if you don't see your Bristling Hydras for it, because they just have so much removal spells. I think this deck could be good. It's one of those... Excuse me. It's one of those decks that, like... So if you're playing, like, a mid-range deck, like a Temur Energy, and you don't have the right spell, or they have a Blossoming Defense, you could just die. If you're taking turns off to cast Hour of Promise, you could just die. Like, there's just so many scenarios where, like, you have to make the exact perfect line, and then you still could lose the game. And we saw that with Michael going 7-0-1 at the Invitational with his version of the green-red Pummeler deck. So this is a deck that I definitely think that people need to be aware of. It needs to be on their radar. And one of the MVPs for this card, or for this deck, is Ronus. It's just, the card is just so good. Like, one of the things with Hour of Devastation, I've brewed up a couple decks with that card in them to be able to get rid of some stuff. It's been like, Hour of Devastation doesn't get rid of Ronus. And then next turn they just play a creature, pump it, and then attack you with Ronus. And it's so annoying to get rid of that card if it resolves. So, sleeve up them slaughters to the slaughters. Yeah, you might have to sleeve them up. So, so we're at 50-50 right now on the poll. So that's pretty interesting. We got some people, saying that they think that's going to be an established deck. We got 50% saying that it's going to be a brew. So one of the decks that you're playing right now, we didn't bring it up. It's not listed here on the top 8. The Emerge decks. Do you think this is a viable deck for the Pro Tour? Or do you think that maybe it's just going to have to wait and see what the actual metagame? Because it's kind of one of those decks that you're taking a risk, I believe, with like showing up with it if you don't know the exact metagame.
I think personally the Temur like 4-color type versions are probably fine. The blue reds, like, you don't have access to things like in the sideboard and the 4-color. You have like Ishkan, or you have like Liliana the Last Hope. You have ways to get creatures back and do stuff. I just think that just the Temur version in general, the 4 colors are fine. They grind really well.
Oh, my bad. I guess I was mistaken on the Hour of Devastation. Sorry to interrupt you there. I forgot that they do lose Indestructible, so it does kill Ronus.
This card is
which is big game.
Yeah.
Big game. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Thanks, chat, for keeping me honest here. What versions of gifts do you expect? What versions of gift? I don't know if that's... Oh,
The
Godfarrow's
Godfarrow's gift deck.
Oh. So, I guess, we'll answer this one. Godfarrow's Gift's another one of those decks. It won the Pro Tour qualifier on Friday, I believe. And I think the deck is good. One of my friends, I thinks it's actually very good. I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Zach Elsick, I believe, is the creator of this deck. I haven't seen the blue-red one, so I definitely have to take a look at that. But the blue-white one, I think, is very powerful. I think what it has going for it is a lot of people aren't playing cards like Dispossess. Yep. Like, that card's just not seeing a ton of play anymore because, this is the only deck really you want it. I think it's pretty resilient to a lot of decks because you can go wide with Angel. You have early cards that can just, like, between... Not really Spell Queller, but the 1/1, the Nimble guy. He can just, like, counter an instant sorcery. So versus ramp, he can do that. He can counter a removal spell. He just, like... You could put on an aggressive attack, and then you have the mid-range plan. You have, like, they're going wide. We can get Cataclysm Gearhulk. So I think, like, the deck has a lot going for it, to be honest with it.
Yeah.
Zach is not the creator. Okay, well, he participated in it. Okay. I thought I saw something on Twitter that he created it, so there's that. Easy to beat once you figure out what they're doing. Yes, I agree with that, Omar. I do agree that it is easier. I don't know how easy it is. It really depends on what kind of spells you have in your deck. I think any deck that has a braid is definitely a little bit easier to do. And then maybe if you have some hate cards in your sideboard, depending on your colors. So, what do you think of that deck?
I think it's cool. I think we were actually just talking about it this morning on the other side there. Just, right in the chat there you see it. GY hate. Good old graveyard.
Yeah. What is there, though? What is there? There's a desert.
You have the
There's-
desert. You have what is it? Feast of Scarab? Scarab Feast.
Scarab Feast. Okay, so if you're playing black.
Yeah, you have. I don't even know.
But if you're playing black, is it just better to play Dispossess? Just like take care of all the God Pharaoh's gifts, and then what else are they gonna do?
Yeah.
I think I like that a little bit better. Because what else? They have no other artifacts they can get back, like artifact creatures, correct? Like they're gonna refurbish. If they refurbish the the 3-man artifact, like who cares? There you go, Crook of Commendation. That's good in the desert. But I don't know if you want that. Like maybe you want like a split of like Dispossess, maybe like 1 Dispossess, 2 things in case you play against other graveyard decks.
Yeah, I think like right now it's weird. So I think it's a deck that if you're not prepared for it, it'll definitely it'll get you.
Okay.
So I think it's one of those weird things, right? So like all these decks in standard right now are just kind of board based. You have a couple tempo decks. You have mono red. You have all these decks. Kind of zombies is almost fallen off in a way.
Okay.
Where the graveyard shenanigans aren't really there.
I honestly think one of the reasons why zombies is kind of falling off is because of the resurgence of mono red. Not only is mono red playing Magma Spray's main now, but they're just a more aggressive deck than zombies. So like I would assume that zombies has a hard time dealing with mono red aggro.
Yeah.
Just off the like first look at it. And this is kind of one of the reasons why I think we've seen green black come back a little bit, because they have enough removal spells in Walking Ballista can like really do some damage versus the mono red aggro decks. So it'll be interesting to see what's going to take place at this Pro Tour. I know I'm very excited. So we're gonna end this part with true, an established deck will win the Pro Tour. So that's what we're going with. So you have Teamer Energy being the deck that you think's gonna win if it's established.
Teamer like a 4-color.
Okay.
That sort of thing.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say Mardu Vehicles would be the deck that I would expect to win the Pro Tour if it happens, like if it's an established deck. And I do expect that like a decent amount of people will be playing Mardu Vehicles, not just because it's the number 2 deck online. I just think a lot of people are going to just look at the metagame, and they're going to go, if Mardu Vehicles, I guess, can beat Mono Red, I'm going to play Mardu Vehicles. I know it's a proven deck, and people are going to mess around and do these other things, and we're just going to try to kill you. Now, if it can't beat Mono Red Aggro, then we have a different discussion. So, all right. We're moving on to winners and losers. With this, we're going to have another... Here we go. Boom. We have another poll. So let's get that poll up there. So the most namesake card of the set of Hour of Devastation is Nicol Bolas, the God Pharaoh. And we want to know, like, do you think that Nicol Bolas is going to make an appearance in the top 8? What do you think, personally?
I'm going to go ahead and say no.
Okay.
I think for the past few tournaments that have been on, streamed and whatnot have you, it's been so close to seeing him, and he just never shows up.
Yeah.
Most players are playing like a one-of. I just think that, once he hits the board, he does a lot. But at the same time, he just dies to an aggressive strategy. Like those types of decks in general,
Okay.
I feel like. So I'm going to say no.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take the optimistic approach here because I love Nicol Bolas. And I also love just ramping into big stuff. It's kind of cool. It's weird how I don't like Tron, but I like Nicol Bolas and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go with true.
I think I win.
You win so far. But we'll see. We'll see if we have everyone's saying no, and you might be right. But I'm going to take the optimistic, and I'm going to say that there will be one. As Meecher puts one in there. And yeah, we need 5 of those. Brandy, appreciate it. So apparently Brandy's saying that Mardu can't beat Mono Red. And I haven't tested the matchup, so I'm not 100% sure on that. So, if that's true, then I would say that it's going to be tough to play Mardu because I do expect Mono Red to be at least like 5 to 10% of the metagame minimal. So, all right. Well, we'll keep that on there. We'll see where we get. See if we can get the true up there a little bit. We'll get some more optimism going on. And apparently, we got some Andreas saying that you can beat it. So we'll let that go on. we're going to go over a couple cards right now that we feel are either winners or losers going into the Pro Tour or going to be a winner or loser after the Pro Tour. Yeah. I'm going to start off with the Scarab God. So this is a card, when it got announced, there was a lot of hype. The gods, oh, this is sweet, great commander card maybe. I have a deck that this will fit right into. I am playing this card currently in Standard. It is winning every game for me. So I won't get into the crazy 5-color deck that I'm brewing up right now. Maybe we'll do that next week or something. I'll highlight a deck. The card is incredible. The amount of, the way that your opponent has to play when this card hits is just, it's so hard to beat. We've seen less Stasis Snares, less cast outs, and just more decks. Every deck in Standard has creatures. Even Blue-Red has, Torrential Gearhulks, which obviously if you get to exile Torrential Gearhulk, you're doing it, right?
You're just ahead at that point.
But any deck that you're playing Scarab God, you're also going to have other creatures. So it's just so powerful. This to me is, I think, the biggest winner. And as we might not see this card at the Pro Tour, I'm hoping we do. I'm hoping someone figures it out like I think I have. I think this card is incredible. I think this is a card that if you don't have your playset online or in real life, you're going to want to buy this card. It is going to have a breakout at some point, if not this weekend. I think the power level on this card is insane. Yeah, I can't say enough about this card. It has me getting some goosebumps just thinking about being able to play this card at a Grand Prix.
I think it's great. I got my butt kicked and sealed by this card.
Oh, I'm sure. Jesus. And sealed, this is just one of those, you play it, you win. And that's the play pattern that I thought when I first read this card for sealed. But it's been that way in Standard, too. And it's cool, they have a removal spell. If it's not an exile effect, which, like I said, I mentioned the ones that there are in Standard that are maybe Anguish Unmaking in Esper Vehicles is one that actually is a good answer for it. They kill it, cool, you play it next turn, what do they do? If it ever resolves and you untap, I just feel like the game's over. So it's quite incredible. All right, let's go to one of yours.
So my first one, I have Champion of Wits.
Champion of Wits.
That is a winner in my book.
Is this weird to say that this is probably in your Standard deck?
It most certainly is.
Okay.
This card is great. It does a lot. It bridges the gap in a lot of ways in some of the Emerge decks. It's all right, cool. I'm going to draw 2. I'm going to pitch my Kozilek's Return so I can Elder Deep Fiend the board away if I have to, or just lets you kind of filter through a lot more.
Okay.
And then you get Eternalize. So that point in the game when you're stuck, you're like, all right, I'm going to draw 4 and then just pitch 2. All right, this is great.
So one of the cool things I've done against this card with Scarab God is I'll either be playing against the new Bug Delirium deck or I'm playing against Emerge, and I get to Eternalize their champion, and it's just insane. So you think this card is just hands down just insane or what?
I think this card's going to break out. I think it, at first when it came out, we're like, all right, this card is cool. Didn't really see much play. I think at some point this card it's going to end up somewhere, whether it's this weekend, whether it's, post-rotation.
Okay.
I think this card at some point is just going to take over somewhere.
All right. I can see that. I just think all the points you mentioned I agree with. Whether it's the Emerge deck or whether we see some Reanimator decks, some more Delirium decks, I do think that this is going to be I can agree with you, it's going to be a big card for this Pro Tour. We're going to see it somewhere. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And apparently now it's an $8 card, so that's pretty good.
It's real good.
All right. Next one for me, we did a couple winners. I'm going to do a loser. Hour of Devastation. Love the card. We've seen it now being played in blue-red, and a couple of the, Temur or the Temur Energy Deck sideboards I've seen one of these in there. I thought the card was super hyped going into the set, and it is very powerful, do not get me wrong. However, I'm calling it a loser just based off of the decks that are going to be played at the Pro Tour. I think it's too slow versus the aggressive decks in the format. And just, we're not going to see decks playing a lot of copies of this. We're going to see blue, red, and that's it. And maybe that's enough to make it like borderline not a loser. But in my opinion, when this card was spoiled, it was spoiled at, it says Hour of Devastation, the set's namesake card. And I just feel like it's kind of underperformed in the sense of showing up. Just pure numbers. Like, I thought this was going to be in some deck and be like a 3 or a 4 of, and just like, I'm just, every game I'm going to kill Gideon. And maybe it's because Gideon is kind of like quietly taking a back seat with mono red coming up. I know we keep mentioning mono red, but it's like, it's a real thing, right?
Yeah.
So in my opinion, this is a loser. This is a loser to me.
I agree.
To answer your question, Minifer, the Scarab God, I have one in the main, one in the sideboard. Playset, no, but why not get a playset? You could always use one. This way you can let your friends borrow some. All right, let's hit him with another one.
I'm gonna go with the loser this time. I'm gonna choose Bantu's Last Reckoning. We're just gonna go with all the board wipes here.
All right, mono board wipes.
So I think at first the hype for this card was real. It was like, hey, here's a 3 mana, kill everything is standard. Downside is your lands don't untap.
Okay.
I played Blue Black Mill week 1, just for F&M kind of shenanigans. And this card was played as a 4 of, and it was every time it was just bad.
So you're telling me that not being able to untap your lands is a bad thing?
In this type of format where mono red is around, definitely, 100%. Okay. I just think that someplace, maybe in like a blue black type of control list, like in a late game, or maybe if you Gear Hulk your opponent in the late game somewhere. I just think overall though this card was way too hyped.
Yeah, I could see that, but it's kind of weird because it was like created, I think, to be able to Wrath early so that those control decks could survive. But yet it might be like, all right, well, we Wrath. Now we're just going to let them play more stuff on 4, and then we have to Wrath again on 5.
Yeah,
maybe like an Esper control deck that has either Hour or Fumigate.
Yeah.
Could be like a mini Wrath is what you're saying, maybe?
Kind of, and it's one of those things, right? So if you're playing this card...
Hey, appreciate the follow. Thanks a lot.
If you're playing this, and I know you're playing it, and let's say I'm playing mono red, I'm not going to overextend.
Sure, especially if you know the first time you see this card, you're going to expect some kind of sweeper. So I can definitely get that.
Yeah, I just think in this type of format, just lands not untapping is a little more rough than it maybe normally would be.
Yeah, and also like we talked about too, it's like the mono red deck has so many creatures that have haste that it's just like, okay, cool. You just wrath the board. Now they untap, they play a creature, maybe 2, but most likely 1, attack you. You don't untap, then they play another one, and you're just like dead. So, all right, we got a little love in there. We've got some 30% on true. So
I don't know.
We're getting there. We're getting there. All right, my next one. This is kind of a pet card for me. Amit Eternal. I have this card as a winner. And I know this is going to sound really weird because, thanks again for the follow, because like Hour of Devastation is actually seeing play, and I have that as a loser, and this is a card that hasn't seen play, besides Jackson Hicks's deck in Cincinnati is red-black aggro. But I think this card, on power level alone, is going to have a breakout, and I'm hoping to see someone really do some damage with it at the Pro Tour. The stats on this card are phenomenal. I think in the right shell that has a good removal spell and an aggressive deck, I think this could be close to the top end. Maybe you go as far as playing like, Jackson had a red-black deck. Maybe you play Chandras and Glorybringers. But I can even see, like, imagine the mono red deck now, but maybe being able to splash for just like a couple black cards like Unlicensed Disintegration and Amit Eternal. I could see a world where I'd like to see this Pro Tour that happen, but maybe in the next set, if we have a little bit more fixing for red-black, that being a thing, because 5/5 for 3 is a big game. It does die to a lot of things. However, there's so many games that could come down, and especially with the red aggressive decks, every chip shot damage matters. The 1 points from the deserts, the 2 points from sacking the deserts, these all add up. And a flick 3, it's like, man, like that's just like if you're trading the creature and getting 3 life in, you might have already attacked, and you put your opponent in a position like if they don't deal with it, you just have a 5/5 again. Like, I'm in love with this card. I think it's great. Unfortunately, I don't expect anyone to go too deep with the counter theme, whether it's Hepetra, Nessus Scarabs, kind of doing stuff like that. However, I do think on its own, I think it's just powerful enough to be somewhere. So, all right, we get some next one.
What are we going for here? What's on this lovely list?
Give me a loser. I want another loser.
Let's go with Fraying Sanity.
Fraying Sanity.
We'll go with that.
We'll go with another card in your first FNM deck for 500.
Terrible. 3 mana. It's a curse. Enchant player. At the beginning of each end step, enchant player puts X cards from the top of his or her library, where X is the number of cards that went to their graveyard from anywhere this turn. So keywords: each end step and anywhere.
Okay.
Like, this card seems great.
Yeah.
It looks cool. Startled Awake is a huge thing.
Turn 3 Frank Sanity, turn 4 Traumatize in Modern off of Simian Spirit Guide.
Yeah.
They're dead.
I just think like it seems good. Doesn't look so great when you're playing on paper though.
Yeah.
It's a little slow. I just think overall this card had a lot of hype coming out. This is one of those, first glance type cards where people are all over it. Whether it be, I think, standard, maybe it fits like really well in like maybe a commander deck.
Okay.
Something like that. But I just think overall this card is straight loser.
Sure.
That's
It has a ton of casual appeal, I feel, and like so whenever a card like that comes out, it's sort of like the mono red, you have like a community of like mill players, mono red players that are just like, oh well, we haven't had these tools in a while. Let's just like, we gotta try to make it work, and I feel like that just hasn't come together yet. So, I'm not surprised to see this as a loser. Miller time hasn't been good in a while,
No,
so
and I think
maybe
post rotation it just kind of dies out in standard, right? There's no Startled Awake. There's no Manic Scribe.
yeah.
Vessel's gone.
But you never know. They could give us some stuff. There could be some other things that have interactions with this. There was Dredge brought up. There's other graveyard things that we could be talking about. We have Embalm, we have Internalize. I know that's kind of not the best reason to put this kind of card in your deck, but who knows? Refurbish. We've seen these Reanimator decks, God Pharaoh's Gift, like that kind of stuff. Like this may see a home at some point. So, all right. And I think that's all we're going to do on winners and losers. So we'll finish the poll with false. Sorry, Nicobolas. Sorry, Richard Meacher. It doesn't look like you're going to show up in the top 8. So hopefully next week when we have our episode, I can be like, I told you I was that 30%. And we can have like a 30% party going on in the chat.
The best part about all this is I finally beat Rich at something.
Ooh.
That's not Pack Wars. That's great.
Okay. I love it. Lastly, I kind of wanted to go over some stuff with the PT, so let's pull up the teams here and let everybody know. This is within the winners and losers. This is the point situation for this weekend for the team series. We have Musashi at 119 points, Team Genesis at 94 points, Ultimate Guard 88, Team MTG Mint Card, Lingering Souls. And I'll just run down a few more here. We got Puzzle Quest, Mutiny, Team Eureka, Fireball Ice, Face to Face, and MTG Bent Card. So we'll just name off the top 10, right?
Yeah.
Out of these teams, can you predict one team that's going to have a winner?
My vote always goes to Genesis.
Okay, why is that?
Granted, like we don't have Michael Majors anymore.
Yeah, that's
unfortunately.
That is a huge blow, I believe, to Team Genesis, but go ahead.
I just think overall, like every team is stacked in some way or another. There's some sort of specialist. I just think Genesis in general, Martin Muller just putting up numbers. Brad Nelson's always there. Lucas Blahan doing real well recently. Seth Manfield, just all these huge names. Martin Dang. So they're just fun. They're just fun to watch.
Martin Dang, last Pro Tour. Well, the only Pro Tour, I believe, that he won was with Mono Red.
Yeah.
Mono Red.
I just think this is, for me personally, these are, players that I like to watch. They're exciting, especially Martin Muller. But these guys are there. They're always there in some way, shape, or form. You know, no matter what it is, everybody's always posting, really strong numbers.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's so many good teams, and like we could talk about name drops and just talking about names, and oh my God, this guy's great at this. This guy's won Pro Tours. This guy results. Musashi, to me, they're just there's not another team that I feel like is as consistent as they are. And I'm not just saying that because they're number one, because like I do agree. Like, there's teams, Genesis, Fireball Ice, Puzzle Quest, all these teams. Lingering Souls has been like one of the, surprises to a lot of people, but not really a surprise to me.
Yeah.
For someone that knows a lot of these people and, gets to have conversations with them, goes over like, hey, what's your feelings on these cards and what's your feelings on these decks? And just, there's so many good players out there. I can't really pick one, but if you really put like, hey, the needle to the record, so to speak, even without Michael Majors, I think Genesis is a great choice from you. However, I'm going to have to jump on for this Pro Tour. I think I'm going to be putting my eggs in the basket of China Fireball Ice. I think this format's wide open. I really believe that their list of players is going to have I don't want to say breakout, right? We're talking about like Hall of Fame players. We're talking about like monsters of the game,
best
right?
Of the best.
Yeah, Best. That's my favorite movie, by the way. Best of the Best. Check it out. I believe it's a 1984 flick. It's great. But yeah, we're talking about monsters of the game, and I just feel like they're going to have a huge Pro Tour this go around. So that's my pick is the winners. Losers, hopefully there's no losers. And I'm also gonna pick Yuta Takahashi. I'd like to see him do really well as well. It's he's been posting a lot of his limited draft decks on Twitter, and I've been able to follow him, so it's been kind of cool to see that progress. I'm the loser, Andrea. You got a lot of love in here for the Raiders. You got some Raider fans.
Raider Nation.
I need to bring out the Redskin stuff. So.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, we're gonna close the show with a little final countdown because you know what? We're almost 24. What are we like? I want to say close to a day away from Pro Tour Hour. I know on the East Coast here we're starting at 8 p.m. I'm gonna be pumped. I'm gonna be sitting at home watching the coverage, and I'm real excited for it. So.
So like Green Lantern's breaking into the Batcave, and what does he discover? A cave inside the Batcave.
Caveception.
Yes.
I
They're lip sync
I
battle.
heard she's not even in the movie that much.
What? Well, of course. I mean, it's Mary Jane. It's not Mary Jane Presents Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay. But I mean, and you score 6 victory points. But while that Flash is in play, the Rogues cannot use their game effect, which is called teamwork. Right? So when I use